Hi all. I mentioned 2 videos ago that I was thinking about responding to a rather lengthy Stefan Molyneux video, titled Why I Was Wrong About Atheism, and here's the first installment. I decided to break it down into parts as some of you suggested. Now please keep in mind that this is my personal opinion, and I'm in no way an economist or political scientist. I'm going to do the best I can with the information I have, and as always, please feel free to discuss, agree, disagree, provide links, and in general, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, let me know if you'd like to see me respond to more of the video. I took this video a little more seriously than I do most of my stuff, so it's also an experiment. Okay, I'm going to skip the first little bit of his original video because he just talks about his personal upbringing and so forth. I'll leave the link to his original video in the description box below if you want to check it out. With that all said, let's get started.
So one thing I can't help but notice is that if you are an atheist, overwhelmingly you are for big government. You are a leftist. You are on the liberal side.
Okay, so from the polls I was able to find, he is right that atheists, agnostics, and the religiously unaffiliated tend to lean to the left of the political spectrum. I do want you to keep in mind what he said about big government, because he doesn't really define what he means by that. He might mean more political employees, more government spending, more military spending, more government programs, or all of the above. Let's listen to the next segment.
Almost 70% of atheists in the US identify as Democrats or lean in that direction. Majority call themselves political liberals, and 1 in 10 atheists say that they are conservatives. Now, conservatism has its pluses and its minuses. One of the pluses is that it's for smaller government.
Well, the American Republicans often campaign on smaller government, but that doesn't mean they actually deliver on that promise once they're elected. For example, take this clip from the Washington Times. Mr. Bush campaigned in 2000 on a pledge to reduce the size of government, continuing a trend that had been underway since the end of the Cold War. But since terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and Pentagon on September 11, 2001, he has done what he thought was necessary to keep the country safe. That commitment became a centerpiece of his 2004 convention speech, whatever it takes. The White House does not contest the numbers showing near record growth in size of government on its watch, but says it has no regrets about the president's decision to eschew a limited government agenda in favor of homeland security and defense spending. Or from this Forbes article. The following table shows the number of government employees, total population, and the GEP ratio. It essentially takes a snapshot at the end of each president's term and compares it to the point when they took office. As you can see from the chart here, there is no drastic change in the numbers during Democrat or Republican presidencies. In fact, during the Obama administration, the numbers seem to have gone down. Clinton and Bush were the same percentage-wise. Like most politics, candidates will usually run on what they think their base wants to hear, but I think their actions are much more telling than their words. Moving on.
Almost 3/4 of atheists say that coercive government redistribution of money to the poor in the form of welfare does much more good than harm. And that is a challenging statement. In 2012, Barack Obama captured 3/4 of the votes among the religiously unaffiliated, and only 23% voted for John McCain.
I also want to point out that this may be due to the perception that the Republicans were being run by religious authoritarians, and not so much because those atheists were necessarily against conservative ideas. You can see the same sort of phenomenon now, as many left or center-left voters voted for Trump because they are tired of the authoritarians on the left trying to enforce their brand of morality on them through shaming and legislative methods.
So, here's the thing. If I live next door to a Christian, that Christian can go to church and can worship and can do whatever they like, and they're not compelling me to do anything. They have their beliefs, I have my beliefs. We shake hands, we exchange cups of sugar in cake emergencies, but they do not force me to do anything.
You could say the same about atheists. My neighbors live next door to me, and I can honestly say that religion or lack of religion has never come up in conversation. And I'm not trying to force my non-belief in a deity on them either. They're more than welcome to borrow whatever ingredients they need in case of a cake emergency. I mean, that shit transcends religion, right? But if you're talking about dogma and ideologies, then some Christians, #not all, will absolutely try to legislate their religious beliefs into laws using their specific dogmas. Not just Christianity either. Sharia laws are literally religious laws.
On the other hand, the lefties, by constantly running to Big Daddy government to enforce their moral conscience on everyone else, regardless of consequences, regardless of ethics, regardless of voluntarism, regardless of the need to choose, that is essential to virtue, the socialists, by running to Big Daddy government, well, they force me to do lots and lots of things.
You can certainly make individual cases for each of those things he mentioned, but I'm really interested in hearing what these lots and lots of things are.
They take my money, they bury me in regulations, they involve my cash in foreign wars, they do lots of god-awful things.
The last time I looked, the Iraq War has cost America over $2 trillion. Wasn't that war launched under a Republican government? Honestly, complaining about leftists taking your cash to launch foreign wars sounds hollow. I'm not saying Democrats are completely innocent either, but I think the military-industrial complex is well funded by both parties. In fact, Trump just promised to boost military spending by $603 billion. If you're talking about government having hands in your pocket, the Republicans have some mighty big hands.
And if I try to follow my own conscience and do what I think is best with my resources, well, they support cats in blue showing up with guns to drag me off to jail because I'm not paying my taxes.
Do you think that if you have conservatives running the government, they're going to let you off scot-free if you don't pay your taxes? I mean, come on. No matter which party is in the White House, you can expect to be prosecuted if you don't pay your taxes. That's just life.
So, lefties support things like property tax, and property tax means you never really own anything in your house.
Okay, you might not like property taxes or think they should be abolished, but again, both conservatives and Democrats support them. For example, taxes based on ownership of property were used in ancient times, but the modern tax has roots in feudal obligations owed to British and European kings or landlords. In the 14th and 15th century, British tax assessors used ownership or occupancy of property to estimate a taxpayer's ability to pay. In time, the tax came to be regarded as a tax on the property itself. In the United Kingdom, the tax developed into a system of rates based on the annual rental value of the property. In other words, property taxes have been around a fuck of a long time and aren't likely to go away anytime soon, regardless of whether the government is right or left wing.
You certainly don't own your house or your condo or whatever, because if you don't pay off the government, they can just come and take it from you. So all you're doing is renting from the government. You never own anything. Christians have a thou shalt not steal, which gives them some ammunition against increasing state power. So
a whopping 83% of Americans are Christians, so it hasn't prevented property taxes yet. And as far as I know, most atheists think stealing is wrong also. None of that has been an effective deterrent against taxes in general, or the specific taxes you're talking about here.
I can't sort of help but notice that the Christians will try to convert me by the word and not the sword of the state, whereas the liberals, the lefties, the Democrats, well, they want to use the sword of the state to make me follow their moral agenda. And
I'm honestly confused by this part. Are you trying to say that leftists are trying to use state violence against you in some way? I don't see that. Sure, you could argue that recently far leftists have tried to use shaming tactics and political violence against individuals, but that isn't state power or government power. If you're talking about legislative power or the power of the law to enforce moral codes, I think both sides can and have been guilty of that.
Let's just say sword a tad more intrusive than word. And that is something that I can't help but notice. Atheism in and of itself, okay, well, that's, good cases to be made, and it's an intellectual argument that I've made before. But here's the problem. Atheists say that they reject irrational authority. They reject unjust and immoral authority.
Actually, no. I'm not sure where you get that from. That's certainly true of some atheists, and it would be true of some Christians as well. Plenty of Christians would argue that they reject irrational or unjust authority, just as vehemently as any atheist. Also, unjust and moral authority would mean different things to different people. For example, some people regard abortion as immoral, and that might be for religious or non-religious reasons, while some regard the right to choose a moral imperative. For the latter group, they might argue that by taking away the right to choose, you're trampling on women's rights, which is immoral.
Very well. How about, and just try this, if you know an atheist or know somebody who's agnostic or whatever, bring to them the basic argument that the government is the initiation of force, that taxation is coercion, and see how they respond.
Alright, I did that, and she said she doesn't really agree with that statement because while the government does enforce laws, the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. If someone could come up with a better system that doesn't break down into anarchy, then by all means we're all ears. Also, if you don't like the current laws or the way the government is run, You could take part in the political system and change them from within. You could even run for president or prime minister of your country if you felt strongly enough about changing the way things are done. You would just have to convince enough people that your vision of the country is a good one and in their best interest. Anyone who has seen what happens after a natural disaster or some event that temporarily disables law enforcement and government oversight would likely know that once civilization breaks down, things get ugly rather quickly, which would make it rather difficult to convince them that taxes and government in general is something we should do away with.
Do they respond with, "Wow, never really thought of it that way before. Tell me more"? Or do they respond as religious fundamentalists respond when you challenge their faith? I will tell you, it is almost invariably the latter. And I've had many, many conversations with atheists about this particular issue, that the government is an agency of force, and that which you ask the government to do, you are begging for the initiation of force to be deployed in a geographical area against the specifically unwilling to coerce them to act against their own conscience.
Well, what you're offering is anecdotal evidence, and I'm willing to bet anecdotally that many Christians would agree with the atheists you speak of in that regard. Since America and Canada are majority Christian in nature, it follows that a good deal of them throughout the history of the nation supported the idea of government and the powers it wields. So sure, both of us, the person I spoke to and myself, would like to hear more of your ideas, but that doesn't mean we're crazy leftists who support a tyrannical government if we disagree on the specifics. Without hearing an alternative, we're both forced to admit that the government, for all of its flaws, is necessary to hold civilization together. Government is always evolving, and since we belong to democracies, we can take part in that evolution by voting or taking a more active role in politics on the local, state, or federal level.
And that basic reality is that it sort of helped me to understand that for the most part, atheism is an outgrowth of faith in the modern God called the state.
No, I reject your attempted redefinition of religion. You're attempting to do the same thing many religious people do, which is redefine the word religion as anything we rely upon or like to engage in. By doing this, you make the word practically useless. If I love a certain TV show, I'm suddenly religious. If I support law enforcement, I'm religious. If I like to play video games, I'm religious. It's just a silly way of using the word that strips it of any meaning. Now, I agree that atheists can embrace all sorts of other ideologies and philosophies, but atheism isn't one of them. It's a stance on one subject, period.
That is their new deity, the state. Got a problem? Run to the state. Need something solved? Run to the state. Want something done? Run to the state. Feel bad about something? Pass a law. Take more money. Borrow more money. Print more money. Make more wars. That's how we solve everything. Run to the state. Get the guns out and everything is solved.
It's hard to talk about this without specific examples. We all do this. If someone breaks the law and causes you harm, I'm fairly certain you would run to law enforcement as well. I've already pointed out that both left and right are capable of causing and sustaining foreign wars, both print more money, make more laws, enforce laws, and use tax money to accomplish those things. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it and want to see me talk about the rest of Stefan's video, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm also looking forward to reading your thoughts about what was said in this video, even if you think I'm batshit crazy. Take care and cheers!